Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into a story that's really unfolding right now. It's the future of Venezuelans in the U.S. who are facing the possibility of losing TPS,
Yeah,
temporary protected status. A lot of people might be thinking, what is that? We'll explain it all. But the big thing to know is this is about people,
absolutely.
hundreds of thousands of people who've built lives here and could be sent back to a country that's in a lot of turmoil. You know what's interesting to me is how this is all playing out in a place called Doral, Florida. Have you heard of Doral?
Doral is fascinating. It's like a central hub of Venezuelan American life. Something like 40% of the residents of Doral are originally from Venezuela.
Wow.
So you can imagine the anxiety.
Yeah, when you say anxiety, what do you mean?
Well, Trump has set this deadline April 6, 2025,
Okay,
for the potential revocation of TPS for Venezuelans.
got it.
And then on top of that, there's another date looming, September 2025, when the 2021 TPS designation expires.
So 2 dates to keep in mind.
Yeah, write those down.
April 6th, 2025, and September 2025.
For sure.
So much going on. Okay, so before we get into those deadlines, let's back up for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just for anyone listening who's like, wait, what is this TPS thing?
Right.
Can you just break it down? Like, what is it and why has it been so important to Venezuelans?
Sure. TPS, or Temporary Protected Status. It's basically a program that offers a safe haven for people who can't return to their home countries because of certain conditions,
Yeah,
like armed conflict or natural disasters or other really extreme situations.
okay.
Now, it's important to remember that TPS doesn't automatically grant a path to citizenship,
Right.
but it does give people legal permission to live and work in the U.S. without that fear of deportation hanging over them.
So it's like a temporary reprieve.
Exactly.
Like when things are really rough back in your home country.
Yeah, like a way to find stability.
Yeah.
And for Venezuelans who fled their country because of the political and economic crises, it's been a lifeline.
Absolutely.
I mean, imagine facing shortages of basic needs, hyperinflation, even human rights violations.
Right.
So for many, coming to the U.S. under TPS was a choice between,
Yeah.
relative safety and potential danger if they stayed.
Absolutely. And the argument from the Trump administration is basically that conditions in Venezuela have improved enough that TPS is no longer necessary.
Right.
But from what I've been reading, it seems like there's more to the story than that.
Yeah, there's definitely another side to this.
Like what?
Well, a lot of Venezuelans, both in Doral and across the country, say that things back home are still really bad. They're concerned about human rights, political instability, the risks if they're forced to go back.
See, this is what makes Doral so interesting to me.
Right.
Because it's this city with a really strong Republican base.
Uh-huh.
Trump won it with like 60% of the vote in 2024.
Yeah.
But it also has this huge Venezuelan community
Huge.
who could be directly affected by this.
Right.
It's like this paradox.
It really is. And the Miami Herald ran this story about Doral recently that really captured this delicate balance.
Oh, wow.
They talked about how local politicians are kind of caught in the middle,
Makes sense.
trying to represent their constituents, many of whom are terrified about losing TPS.
Right.
But they also don't want to clash with a president who's very popular in Doral.
So how are they handling this?
It's a tightrope walk. So there's this councilman, Rafael Pinero.
Okay.
He's originally from Venezuela, and he actually sponsored a resolution
Uh-huh.
that the Doral City Council unanimously approved,
Wow.
and it urges the administration to find a solution for these law-abiding Venezuelans.
Okay.
So they're acknowledging the issue,
Right.
making a public statement,
Yeah.
but it's very carefully worded.
Oh, interesting.
They're not directly attacking Trump's decision.
So they're trying to appeal to him,
Yeah, maybe to his sense of fairness.
but without directly confronting him.
Exactly. Which kind of shows you the influence that Trump still has,
Yeah.
even in a city with so many Venezuelans.
And it wasn't just Pinero. Doral's mayor, Christy Fraga, also sent a letter
Oh, really?
to Trump, Pence, and Rubio,
Wow.
basically urging them to find a solution. It's almost as if they're saying, hey, remember us, remember Doral.
Yeah,
We've been good to you.
right.
We've supported you.
Exactly.
Now we need your help.
Yeah, and they've got a point. Doral just got approval for this massive Trump Organization development project.
Right.
And Eric Trump himself actually supported Doral's fight against a waste incinerator.
So there's history there.
There is?
This almost feels like they're calling in a favor.
It does, doesn't it?
But it's a huge favor.
It is a big ask to go against his own administration's stance.
On an issue that's really important to his base.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But not everyone agrees with Doral's approach.
No.
Some of the national Venezuelan advocacy groups think Doral isn't being forceful enough,
Oh, interesting.
that they should be condemning the potential injustice of revoking TPS.
So there's some division even within the Venezuelan community.
Yeah, it seems like there's disagreement about how to handle this.
Yeah, it makes you think that even within a group that's facing a common threat, there can be different opinions about how to move forward.
That's a good point. It shows you how complex all of this is.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about Doral, it's about the whole country, the whole political landscape.
Yeah, it's a sensitive issue.
Definitely. There was this one quote that really stuck with me. This woman, Isabel Martin, who calls herself a super Republican. She said, "I love my party, but I'm scared for my community."
Wow. Yeah, that says it all.
It really does.
The struggle so many people are facing.
Totally loving their party, but terrified of what their party might do.
And what it could mean for their lives.
It's a reminder that this isn't just some abstract debate.
Nope.
These are real people's lives.
Their livelihoods, their sense of security.
And then there's the economic side of all this.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got Venezuelan businesses and workers who have become integral parts of their communities.
Like in Doral and Chicago.
It's like what Councilman Pinero said, that Doral's success is largely due to the significant contributions of the Venezuelan community.
He's not wrong.
So what happens if all those contributions are gone?
That's the big question.
And it's not just about the economics either.
You're right.
There's the human element.
Absolutely. The fear of being uprooted, separated from families, sent back to a place that might not be safe.
That's what gets me.
It's heartbreaking. It really is. And that fear, it's not just about the economic stuff.
Right.
I mean, the Miami Herald had this story about a woman, Isabel Martin, who said, people are afraid to even wait for the bus.
Oh, wow.
Or go to work.
It's like a constant unease.
Yeah, it's like this weight on their shoulder.
And it's not just Doral.
Right.
This fear.
All across the U.S.
Yeah, any Venezuelan who could lose TPS.
They're all dealing with this.
Exactly.
It's not just leaving a place they've built a life. There's a real fear of danger. Absolutely. I was reading about this Venezuelan migrant in Chicago who fears torture if he has to go back.
It makes you think about how we decide who deserves protection.
Yeah. Who gets to stay, who doesn't.
What are the criteria?
Right. It's a tough question to wrestle with.
For sure. Okay, so let's talk about solutions.
Okay.
I mean, beyond what Doral is doing, are there any legislative options that could help?
Well, there are a couple of things being discussed.
Like what?
One is the Venezuelan Adjustment Act.
Okay.
Which would be huge.
What would that do?
So it would grant permanent resident status to Venezuelans who came to the U.S. before December 31st, 2021.
So basically a fast track to a green card.
Exactly. It's kind of modeled after the Cuban Adjustment Act.
Right, the one for Cubans?
Yeah, which
Sure.
has been around for decades. But getting something like that passed is a whole other challenge.
Right. I mean, it seems like a long shot.
It's definitely not easy. And then there's the Dignity Act.
Okay, I've heard of that. How would that work?
Well, it's more of a broad immigration reform proposal.
Okay.
It's not just about Venezuelans.
So it's bigger.
Yeah, much bigger. It's about border security and creating a pathway to legalization for undocumented immigrants who meet certain requirements.
So two very different approaches.
Right. One is targeted just at Venezuelans.
The Adjustment Act.
Right. And the other one, the Dignity Act, is more sweeping.
But both are going to be tough to get through Congress.
Oh, yeah. Especially with all the gridlock.
I was talking to Adelis Farrow.
From the Venezuelan American Caucus.
Yeah, and she basically said, don't get your hopes up.
Makes sense. She's dealing with the reality of politics.
Exact.
And how hard it is to change the immigration system.
Yeah. And we've got that April 6th, 2025 deadline looming.
Right. Like a ticking time bomb.
It adds this urgency to everything.
Absolutely.
It's not just Doral either.
Right. Miami-Dade County passed a resolution, too.
Oh, wow, they did?
Yeah, urging the administration to reconsider on TPS for Venezuelans.
Okay, so it's symbolic.
Yeah.
But it's still a statement.
It shows that there's at least some pushback.
Especially in a place like Miami-Dade, which leans Republican.
Right. It wasn't unanimous, though.
Oh, really?
One Commissioner, Joe Carollo, voted against it.
Interesting. But the fact that it passed at all.
It suggests that maybe there's some bipartisan support out there.
It's a little bit of hope.
A glimmer.
But still so much uncertainty.
Yeah. For now, it's a waiting date.
For hundreds of thousands of people.
And their families.
It's easy to get lost in the politics and the big picture.
It is.
But these are real lives.
That's why those individual stories are so important.
Like the one about Ana Gil Garcia.
Yeah, from the Illinois Venezuelan Society.
All those calls she's getting.
From terrified migrants.
Looking for answers.
It reminds you that this isn't just theoretical.
It's about people's lives.
Their hopes, their fears.
It's about real human beings.
Absolutely.
It's those stories,
Yeah.
That really hit home.
It makes it real.
I was thinking about Ana Gil Garcia
Yeah.
from the Illinois Venezuelan Society.
Right.
And all those calls she's been getting.
People desperate for help.
Exactly. It just highlights how much fear and uncertainty there is.
And desperation. People don't know what to do.
It's about real people. Yes.
It's not just numbers on a page.
Families trying to build a life.
Trying to contribute.
And they're terrified.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that when you're talking about policy.
Absolutely. And the decisions being made right
They
now.
have real consequences.
For so many people.
It's a reminder that we need to approach this whole issue of immigration with compassion.
Thinking about all the political stuff going on right now,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like this decision on TPS is just about economics or national security.
I agree.
There's a political angle here, too.
Absolutely. There's this whole anti-immigration sentiment
Right.
that's been building.
And it seems like this issue with Venezuelans
It's being used.
to appeal to a certain base.
Yeah, the people who are receptive to that message that immigrants are a threat.
Taking resources.
Dangerous even.
It's scary to see that kind of rhetoric.
It is. It relies on fear.
Misinformation, too.
Yeah, and just a lack of understanding about how complex immigration really is.
It's easier to demonize a whole group.
When you don't see them as individuals.
Right. It's us versus them.
That's exactly what it is.
But how do you counter that?
How do we have real conversations about that?
That aren't based on food.
Yeah, it's tough. But I think it starts with education.
Listening to each other.
Seeking out different viewpoints.
Being open to hearing stories that might make us uncomfortable.
That's how we challenge our own assumptions.
Immigration isn't a zero-sum game.
It's not. We can create a better society.
More inclusive one.
One where everyone has a chance.
That's the goal, right?
Absolutely.
Thinking back to this whole idea of deserving immigrants.
Yeah.
It really makes you think
about how we define worthiness.
It's like we're picking and choosing who deserves justice.
Steers equality
based on these arbitrary criteria.
It's happened throughout history.
It's like we haven't learned from the past.
Right.
This TPS debate is like a microcosm of that.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we're not there yet.
As a country, I mean,
in terms of living up to our ideals,
how we treat immigrants is a reflection of who we are.
As a nation, it's a call to action.
To fight for a more just system.
To challenge injustice.
Well, we've covered a lot today.
We have.
But this conversation isn't over.
Not even close.
This is going to keep unfolding.
With real impacts on people's lives.
So to everyone listening,
stay informed.
Keep the pressure on.
For a more humane approach to immigration.
That's what matters.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better world.